Okay, good Monday morning. Here is what your week looks like. We're going to spend Monday and Tuesday on absolute value inequalities. And then Wednesday and Thursday, we are going to review. Friday, you need to make sure that you're setting at least an hour aside for your Chapter 1 test. Really, you should be setting an hour aside every day, but Friday is especially important. This page 25 just is what page we're starting our notes on. That's why it's written there. So in your note packet, if you've printed it off, get to page 25. And I've already written some of these down here. I'll read through them as we go through them. So you can pause as needed because I'm going to go a little quicker than probably what you can write. But the absolute value, how we read this, is the absolute value of x is less than or equal to 2. So how would we graph this? Well, let's think about things that are less than or equal to 2. Of course, 2 is, because it's equal to it. Any number here, any of the decimals, 1.5, 1.25, 1.1, 1, 0. When we get to -2, that still works. But when I start crossing over, because when I take the absolute value of -2 and turn it into a +2 by taking the absolute value of it, then that still works. It's less than or equal to 2. But as soon as I get to the 3's, they don't work. Absolute value of a -3 is a +3. And that is not less than or equal to 2. So this first one here is a reminder, this is a closed circle because it includes the point. So when we're graphing these, we got a closed circle, and it includes the points. Down here it says the absolute value of d is less than 5. Right? So the absolute value of d is less than 5. So all numbers that are less than 5 when you take the absolute value of it. So 6 doesn't work because just like -6 wouldn't work. You take the absolute value of either of the numbers, you get 6, which is not less than 5. So on this one here, you do an open circle. Okay, we do an open circle. And they're connected here. And now you're going to notice down here when we do these greater thans, the absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 3. So what numbers are bigger than 3? 3, 4, 5, etc. all work. And also, you could hop to the other end and go -3 because you take the absolute value of -3, -4, -5. All of those are bigger. And again, it's a closed circle. Down here, absolute value of n is greater than 4. So numbers that work had to be bigger than 4. So starting at 4.00001 would work. And -4.000 whatever till infinity. And then with a 1 thrown onto it. All those numbers work. 5, 6, 7, 5.5, 6, 6.25. Whether it's positive or negative, when you take the absolute value of it, it's going to be greater than 4. Okay, moving on here. I've already written this first one here. And important steps. One thing that we are going to do, you need to rewrite these. Okay? If you do not rewrite these, then you're already doing it wrong right from the get-go. So these first ones, when you have an and, you can write it as a compound inequality. Right? We can have this on both ends. And when we rewrite this, that addresses the absolute value. So remember when we had the absolute value of x plus 2 equals 3, when we were doing an equal, remember we would split it, and x plus 2 would equal 3, x plus 2 also equal a -3. So in this case down here, we get rid of the absolute value by adding the negative in front. We do that with the ands. There's another way you could do it. You can write it into two separate ones as well, but I think that this is the easiest. And the nice thing about you guys is that since you're taking this test at home, you can have maybe a small note card or something to help you on some problems like these. But it is capped. It's a time test, just so you can't sit there and go through your notes for hours and hours on end. You do have to be proficient in it, but this is something I would definitely write down. Just the difference between when it's an and statement, when it's an or statement, and how you set it up. Because when you figure that out, then these problems become pretty easy. So I just drop this down. I drop my absolute values when I add that -3 to the front. And now I just solve it. And when I solve that, I get, when I subtracted 2 from each side, -5 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 1. So these get a little trickier. It's not, when we did our examples up here, it was always the same number on each side. You'd have a 5 and a -5, a 3 and a -3. Down here, when we start putting problems inside the absolute value, it changes your answers. Okay, so what numbers would work here? Any number between -5 and 1. So I could check this if I needed to. Pick a number smaller than -5, so like -6. -6 plus 2 is -4. Absolute value of that is 4. 4 is not less than or equal to 3. Over here I could pick 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. Same thing. Any number in between. 0, for example. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 is less than 3. Over here, when we have an or statement, we do it exactly the same as kind of what we did up here, except here's the catch on this one. So over here, the catch is that we added this at the beginning. Over here, the first time you just write it down exactly as is. Then you write your or, and then we also do the opposite sign and the opposite number. So I changed 2 things there. I changed this to a less than, and I changed it to a -7. And now I solve them separately by subtracting 3 from both sides. R is less than 4. Over here I subtract 3 from both sides. Or R is less than -10. So those would be my 2 things. And again, you could check them if you wanted to. But we're going to move on. So that was page 25. So you have everything copied down from page 25. And I'm going to start page 26 for you. This is your assignment, is uploading me a copy of both page 25 and 26. They're very basic and simple. Right? And if you go to your notes, you'll notice that there's a couple more. You gotta get all the way through 14. We'll come back to that in a minute. Go 9 and 10. I told you that if it was a less than or equal to, we just add the number to the front, and that allows us to drop my absolute value. So I add 4 to both sides, all 3 sides in this case, and I end up with -7 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 15. I can graph that. The problem is they didn't give me enough hash marks down here, so I'm going to have to go by, oh geez, probably 5s if I had to guess. Yeah, we're going to do 5s. So I kind of looked here and just thought about, that's a big gap here between these numbers. So we'll do -10, -5, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20. And so -7, we'll say, is right here. And that goes all the way up to a +15 here. Connect them. Last one for the day. with the greater thans, or the greater than or equal to's like these ones are. You always just copy down the problem as is. And then we also have, you copy down the problem. You flip your inequality, and you take the opposite. So I subtract 7 here. V is greater than or equal to 8. And I subtract 7 here. V is less than or equal to negative 22. And again, I'm going to have to do a pretty large scale here. So let's see if this would work. 20, negative 25, 20, 15, 5, 0. All right, that'll barely work. So I'm going to have to go by 5s again. I'll do negative 25 there. That would be negative 20, negative 5, positive 5, and there's the 10. So in this case, I have an OR statement. So where are my solutions? My solutions are at 8, greater than or equal to 8, less than or equal to negative 22. So I'll draw those arrows. Notice how typically with an OR, although I've seen it the other way sometimes, they're going to go the opposite way. 99% of the problems we do, they're going to go the opposite way. If you did have two that went the same way, so if they went, instead of going opposites, they both went like this, I would just double and triple check them and make sure that you did everything right. It would be a rarity that you would see something like that, but occasionally it does happen. So your assignment is to do all of 25 and page 26. So that is notes and 9 through, I believe it was 14. Let me just double check. Yes, 9 through 14. And these will have number 13 and 11 will have 3 steps to them instead of 2 because it's a multi-step problem as opposed to just a one step where here you're subtracting your negative 10 and then dividing by negative 1, or I guess like in 14. So a couple extra steps, but get that done. Upload a copy of all your stuff. Your grades are updated online, so you can take a look and see how that's going there. Okay, have a good day.